Welcome to the Rebekah Panepinto project. Today, I am very excited to host Michael Campbell. Michael is the CEO of Relu Tech, which is a technology solutions company that helps enterprises to reduce IT costs, extend asset life, and accelerate cloud migration. With deep expertise in cloud strategy, enterprise sales, and IT lifecycle management, Michael leads Relu Tech's mission to eliminate the financial and operational barriers to digital transformation. Under his leadership, Relu Tech has become a trusted partner for different organizations as they navigate the shift to the cloud. They offer flexible solutions such as third-party maintenance, as well as creative cloud financing. And Michael and I first crossed paths when we worked together at CloudReach, and he joined that organization through the successful build and exit of Relu's Cloud to Blackstone. Today, Michael lives just outside of Atlanta with his wife and his 3 children, and when he's not helping customers to accelerate their cloud journeys, you can find him coaching youth sports, cheering on his kids from the sidelines, or sneaking away to a nearby fishing hole. We have an awesome conversation today, which will give you a great overview on how Relu Tech partners with companies like us here at Artisan Studios to help a customer through their complete cloud journey. Enjoy the show. Michael, welcome to the show today.
Hi, Rebekah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to join you.
Likewise. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time, so I'm glad we finally arranged our crazy schedules and made it happen.
Yeah, it's not easy. Unfortunately, my calendar is not mine, right? And so I let the reps control it, and they tell me where to go, and I just do it unfold, unfortunately.
Smart leader. I like it. Well, we've known each other since really my true cloud career started, back when I reloaded to New York City for CloudReach. You were running the show at that point, and you've still stayed in the ecosystem, as have I. Today, you're with Relu Tech. But I want to get your perspective, because I think you have a very unique one on how the AWS ecosystem has changed, not only in that window of, the past 6 years or so, but from the beginning of when Amazon first came on the market to really how they're going to market today.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey. We've been really lucky in the companies that we've built and started. We got to see just an amazing amount of progression and transformation, not just with customers, but with Amazon itself, right? And so if you wind the clock back, we started our partnership with AWS back in the end of 2013, beginning of 2014. And what's funny is, you hear the saying, like, what's old is new again. And I feel like right now, we're back into a similar situation that we were in the early days. And I'll get to that in a second as to why. But back then, it was a developer's world. Like, AWS was a developer's tool. And so you had all these companies that had people that were writing new code and, creating new apps, and they were leveraging this new tool. And so when we started working with Amazon, I guess 2014 timeframe, it was already like a $4 billion company. But if you went and you had conversations with IT people, traditional IT people, they'd say, Amazon, AWS, you want me to outsource my IT department to the book company? Like, oh, are you crazy? Right? And so Amazon had this like really impressive ability to win the developer wars. And I just remember being at those first couple reinvents, and it was just insane because you had this buzz and you had all these people doing all these really cool things. But then you had like traditional IT, and they're holding on to hugging onto their servers, holding on to it. They're not moving, and they're telling you all the reasons why it won't work. But Amazon was just relentless. It was always day one. It was always like continue to develop and innovate, build things. And I think eventually over time, they just kept winning and winning. So for us, with the companies we built, we had some really unique story, and we went out there and we said, hey, as you transition and migrate into AWS, we're actually from a data center world. So we'll buy back all your old equipment and we'll maintain it, and we'll do it at a fraction of the cost, and then allow you to move faster within the AWS journey, within your cloud journey. And so right off the bat, customers started saying, yeah, we get it. We understand. Now we're seeing that a lot of our development's already taken place there. Let's look at our infrastructure and see what we can do. And so we just had all these great conversations, and right away, customers started saying, hey, can you actually help us migrate to the cloud? Because we want to do it, but we don't know what we're doing. And so we built a company called Relu Cloud, And with Relu's Cloud, we hired some of the smartest technology people we could find. And we really would just go into customers and say, hey, what you have to understand, and this is starting to be 2015 timeframe. You're still having a little bit of a religious battle of like, hey, cloud or on-prem at that point, right? And so we had folks that had, we had a joke where we had a team of people out of an enterprise that had migrated themselves out of a job. And so we were like, hey, why don't we go and find other companies that need that kind of assistance and help? And so we had this great journey, and migrations were all the things. And so you fast forward maybe 5 or 6 years, and all of a sudden now you got a lot more infrastructure that's been moved into Amazon. And you look at what I call like the big data world. Now it's like, okay, cool. We have all these incredible services. Our data's starting to be in the cloud. We can spin things up. We can do all these different things to drive outcomes and really drive innovation. And so you had this really neat period of time where the capabilities that companies had were unlocked in a way that they had never been before. You didn't have to order servers and wait 6 months to get them deployed, spin them up and all that stuff. I mean, it was just like instantaneous. And so you fast forward that to now, and last year was a really interesting year. You had Gen AI, and everybody wants to talk about AI and what it's capable of doing, all that stuff. But what I think happened, there was a little bit of a false start last year. And don't get me wrong, like I think we are going through another revolution right now. And what's happening with AI, it's happening so fast and it's compounding and you really can't keep up. But I think what we saw last year was kind of a false start where there's still a lot of people that are trying to figure out and understand, okay, it's an incredible tool set. It gives you incredible capabilities, but how do I use it and how do I maximize Gen AI's potential? And I think what happened is you had this period of time, let's call it the beginning of 2024, where there was a lot of science experiments happening. And there was a lot of people just saying, okay, we have to go do this. What if we could do this? And it was exciting. It was this incredible period of time where, anything is possible. And the art of the possible conversation was fantastic. But I think what happened a little bit, and you kind of see this reflected in, like, if you go look at AWS and Microsoft and Google and their growth numbers, they slowed down just a little bit. And one might say, yeah, but that's because they're so big now and you can't expect, 40, 50, 60% growth every year. But I really do think last year was kind of a pause moment where it was basically, okay, we've been hit by this incredible new technology. How are we going to leverage it? What are we going to do? And how do we make sure that we can actually get a return on all the investment we make? And it's funny where it kind of comes back all around where I was, 10, 11, 12 years ago, is if you go talk to Amazon, and I'm sure it's with Microsoft and Google too, the emphasis is back on like bread and butter migrations. And it's like, okay, in order to really, truly leverage all the LLMs and all the different Bedrock and everything that's out there, we still have to get our data into the cloud. We still have to get all of our apps running in the cloud. And so I think we've gotten to a point now where I don't see us having this massive, every single company is going to go all in. Like, I really think hybrid's here to stay, and there's going to be different workloads and different business cases for everything. But I do see another, let's call it gold rush over the next 3, 5, 7 years, where all these large organizations, you take out all the digitally native ones and look at the complex global conglomerate organizations that have data centers everywhere and, thousands and thousands of servers and workloads. And they all want to take advantage of Gen AI, and they're all looking at the prospect of significant parts of their revenue streams and their businesses being disrupted by some startup that's truly leveraging cloud and AI and everything like that. And so right now, I think we've kind of created this new rush of migrations and saying, all right, how do we go faster? How do we leverage the cloud partners in the ecosystem? And then how do we actually leverage the cloud environments to go make these outcomes a reality? Because I think there's no doubt that the wave and the tidal wave of Gen AI is coming. I think there's just a lot of people, CEOs, C-suite, they're saying, this is incredible. How do I do it? How do I do it? And everybody's asking the same thing. And so I think we're still in this period of uncertainty. But what everybody knows is, okay, well, in order to unlock whatever we're going to unlock, we still need to get all of our workloads out of the data center.
You sit in a really interesting spot too with Relu Tech of the folks that are becoming more digitally savvy, some who are maybe a little more timid, sitting in this hybrid world or even staying on-prem. So when you evaluate looking at last year to maybe where 2026 and beyond is going, where do you feel we are in the life cycle and where companies could lean in to be front runners in their industries versus the ones that you mentioned may or may not go out of business?
It's interesting. So what I think is going to happen with Gen AI, I throw the term outcome a lot out there because I'm not, the traditional IT is selling speeds and feeds and then capacity. And then, hey, we're going to enable you to have the right backend and the right networking and the right throughput. To me, all that stuff's going out the door. And what's going to happen over the next 5-10 years is I need to enable an outcome. If you're a marketing department, if you're a sales department, if you're some kind of engineering or operations department, but you know what you're trying to do to enable your company to get better and to grow. And so you don't really care about how it gets done. You just want to know that, hey, I can go in, leverage my customer data, ask it a bunch of questions, get the feedback that I need, and then go make business decisions. And so I think what's going to happen is, hey, the outcome is what I'm buying. And so what does that mean? So what that means is, again, well, you have to look at your infrastructure. You have to look at your estate today. Are you all in the cloud? If you're all in the cloud, that becomes a much easier conversation. And I'd actually argue like we're seeing a massive disruption in the SaaS space right now, in the software space right now. And software, ate the world, right? But I think what's happening is we were in this world that was heavily software, but also heavily services driven. And I think moving forward, there's going to be a combination of like IP led software and IP led services. And so I think what's going to happen is, hey, IT is just going to be a totally different conversation. And it's going to be how do we go and eliminate a lot of or create more efficiencies that would have taken us a team of consultants over the next couple of years. So that's more like the digital native space. If you look at a majority of the large enterprises out there, everybody has a workload number that they throw out there, but let's say 20% of today's workloads are in the cloud. That means there's still a huge amount that need to go in there. I think there's going to be a tipping point that we won't pass or go past. So I don't think we'll have like 80% of workloads in the cloud. I think it'll get to like 50, 60%, and then people will be comfortable running some on-prem and then in the cloud. And so what that means is you have this concept of when companies look to do migrations, they have this period of time where they're running two environments. And it's commonly referred to as like the double bubble, right? And so I gotta stand up my new cloud environment, but then I also have to continue to run my data center environment on-prem. And there's a lot of great funding mechanisms out there from the cloud providers that can help offset that. But there's also still what we call at Relu Tech, a lot of silent barriers that just totally disrupt a cloud migration. And so when I engage and work with a partner like Artisan, I don't want Artisan to focus on the really sexy stuff, the fun stuff, that modernization, the 7 R's, whatever it is. And that's where true innovation's happening. That's where the code's being looked at, rewritten. You're trying to make decisions. Do I retire? Do I innovate? Do I build new? Do I replatform? All that stuff. Our business at Relu Tech, we looked at it and said, okay, at one point we ran a consulting business. We were in that world. We understand what some of the challenges are in that world, but we've also been in the data center world for a long, long time. And what we see is companies don't spend a lot of time thinking about what to do with the data center stuff. And the data center stuff is contracts, maintenance renewals, hardware, short-term capacity needs. Most companies that are growing, it's not like their data just stops and they don't need more storage and they don't need more compute. And so when you're in this scenario where you're kind of in this directional mode where you have a cloud environment and you have a data center estate, a lot of that gets lost. And so what we've seen over the years is a barrier or something that just makes it harder to migrate faster is the people that have to focus on the data center side. So we built out a set of solutions, a stack of solutions that go after the things that aren't thought about. Usually they're an afterthought. And typically what we can do is we can drive savings. We can operationalize data center spend. So if today, if you're depreciating your assets, it's always on the capital line. And so our solutions can come in and say, hey, go, whether we're working with a partner or working with Amazon or working with the customer directly, you guys go focus on the incredible innovation components. We'll focus on the back end. And we've taken this model that we've been working on for 25 plus years, and we've really just reskinned it a little bit and said, hey, this is really cloud focused. And so we bring all this expertise that ultimately at the end of the day becomes Amazon's best friend, because Amazon doesn't want a customer to have to deal with contract renewals and the OEMs, refresh cycles, all those things are coming. And so if we can come to the table and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, all these things that you haven't even thought of yet, we have an incredible solution for them, and we're going to take care of them for you. And so I think what that ultimately ends up doing is, hey, you got that digital native group of people. They're going fast. It's easy for them. But all these people with these highly complex, multi-site, multi-data center environments, there's a lot there that can really mess up a migration, slow it down and make it complex and take it a long time. And that's the business that we built. We just go out and we say, hey, we're going to help you solve all these problems that you're probably not thinking about that are going to jump up and bite you later down the road.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is you're the cloud therapist. A lot of people just want to charge forward, and you got to sometimes go back and do the work and clean up the mess and address certain situations before you can truly and effectively move forward.
Well, it's funny you say that, because, I've always thought part of leadership is being a therapist, and you have to, your people are your most important asset, and you got to listen to them, and you got to hear them, and you got to get feedback from them. You got to understand what's working, what's not working. And yeah, there's a lot of therapy involved.
That's great. So when you are approaching a customer for the first time, where do you see the resistance? Is it fear-based? Maybe some of the folks who are holding on to their servers, like you said, don't want that world to go away? Or where do you find resistance from a company to really be able to find the model that best fits their enterprise being successful for the long term?
It is such a great question, because fear is a part of it, right? It's like the old saying that everybody heard, nobody ever got fired for going with IBM, right? You choose IBM, it's the safe choice. You're not going to lose your job because, hey, I chose best in class, right? And so when we come into a conversation, we're bringing truly disruptive and different solutions and concepts to the table. And so getting a customer and educating them on what works, what doesn't work, where we feel, because we're not a solution for everything. There are certain workloads and there are certain scenarios that we'll be the first one to tell the customer, like, this is not us. We don't do this. And a lot of times what's happening is, especially in this climate, right? Customers are looking for ways to optimize and save money. I always refer to it as, hey, we're in like the do more with less area. And we've seen all these layoffs in technology over the last couple of years. You've seen the increase in innovation. You've seen the ability to coders, that are robots now. And it's like, we're in this do more with less, era. And so if you look at companies, they're trying to save money and they're trying to figure out ways to get what they need done, because technology never stops. It's constantly changing, and the pressures are never allaying. Like, they're still, hey, at the end of the year, you have these bad projects, your MBOs are tied to them, maybe your bonus is tied to them. So it never stops. You just have to figure out how to get creative. So a lot of the times when people look at our solutions, we have an elastic maintenance solution that aligns with a migration plan. We have this creative cloud financing solution. So we'll actually go into a customer up front and say, hey, your equipment that you're on, that you're going to be migrating off of, it's worth $2 million today. If you wait to the end of your migration in 12 or 16 or 24 or heaven forbid 36 months, it's like a car. The second you drive off the lot, every day that goes by, that car is worth less. It's the same thing for data center equipment, whether it's server, storage, networking equipment. So at the end of the migration, what was worth $2 million today might only be worth 500 grand. And so what we've done is we've gone out to these customers and we've created this really unique financial instrument. And what we do is we'll buy that equipment back today, give them a check upfront cash for that $2 million, and then we'll lease that equipment back to them over the course of their migration. And what that does is it creates a lot of flexibility for the customer. One, now they've got an infusion cash that they can put on top of some kind of funding, whether it's like match funding or something like that. But then it also gives them and their team like a bogey to go hit and say, hey, we can get out of this data center and we got to hit this migration plan or else we're going to be charged more rent, in the leaseback scenario. So we have elastic maintenance. We have a really creative financing tool. And so when we're talking to these customers, at the end of the day, yeah, there's some fear of the unknown, which is always, hard in any kind of transition environment where you're going from what you know to something new. It's just constantly communicating, educating, making sure Amazon's on the same page, making sure the customer understands what they're getting, and then making sure a partner like Artisan also understands. And bringing all those together, now you've kind of did the old 1 + 1 = 3 scenario, and you have a customer who's really going to be well taken care of because you have Artisan doing the front end, you have Amazon being the, hey, this is my home for the next 10 years, and then you have Relu Tech coming in the back saying, hey, don't worry, we're going to take care of all the things that you're not thinking about, and we're going to save the process again.
Yeah, I love it. You call it a partner's partner model, which I think is great. We've talked in the past about how in today's environment, the best way to go to business is through partnership. Direct scenarios, especially when you have, the animal that is Amazon behind you, it can just be a long road. Whereas the more you put this ecosystem that's already built, things like AWS Marketplace, piece it all together to only benefit a customer and accelerate their journey, then everybody wins in that scenario.
Well, you're going to send me off on a different topic here because I'm highly passionate about sales and business development and the concept of and getting to from you, which it's getting harder and harder and harder. And there's a lot of obvious reasons why, because of all these security breaches, and a lot of times they come in through vendors. And so the process that you have to go through when you're a new vendor for customers, it's harder than it's ever been. But I'm not going to go down that path unless you want to talk more about that. But it's a time right now where you look at Amazon and what they're doing is some really incredible things around making it easier to do business with. And you look at some of the things that are from a marketplace standpoint. And so with us, I wish I would have learned this early in my career. Obviously, we partnered with Amazon early. But to your point, there's a whole nother ecosystem that's out there. And it's like, okay, if I can leverage the partner ecosystem and I can leverage a partner like Artisan that's already involved with a customer, I bring my solutions to the table, which are incredible solutions. It's just hard to get in front of a buyer at the right time, right? Like that's timing is everything. Instead, if I go leverage these partnerships, it's going to be a lot easier for Rebekah to walk me into one of her customers and say, oh, you know what? Based on our engagement, I've learned this about you, and I think you could really benefit from this purchase leaseback solution, right? And so for what we've done, over the last, 18 months is pivot to that partner's partner model. And I think we've gotten a little bit lucky too, because if you look at Amazon, you look at where they're focusing, they are driving so much through marketplace now. And it makes sense, right? There's this tech distribution model over the last 30, 40 years that was built for an on-prem data center world, right? It's like, how do I get 1,000 servers from the OEM to distribution to then get them all tested and built up where they're supposed to from a configuration standpoint and then shipped to the customer? Well, as companies do more and more with the cloud, that distribution model becomes kind of like, hey, what am I paying for? What am I actually getting at? They're just passing software licenses around. And so if you look at what Amazon's doing with Marketplace, they're saying, okay, at the end of the day, we know that procurement loves being able to have control insight into their spend, seeing all the different places their dollars are going, consolidating vendors. And so what I think Marketplace is doing is really replacing and kind of building this next generation distribution arm. And so if you look at where you go from there, it's like, okay, pretty soon, they're going to have an offering, I'm quite sure, where it's going to be a bundled stack of solutions that say, okay, you can get Artisan's incredible QSR software approach. You can tie in Relu Tech. You could probably tie in another ISP like a Splunk or something like that that can give some kind of insight into the solution that you're setting up. And oh, Mrs. Customer, you don't have to spend four different, PO. You don't have to cut four different POs or four different companies. You can consume it all through Artisan, through Marketplace. And to me, that's the future right there. So yes, the value of partnerships is becoming more and more critical and absolutely table stakes for anybody that wants to be successful in the cloud ecosystem moving forward.
Yeah, I had a recent situation with a company who is really excited to do business with us, but have a 1 to 2 year long licensing / vendor approval process. And they don't want to wait 1 to 2 years to do this project. But what do you know? Amazon already went 3 years through the process, has it done, and we can just transact through Marketplace, which is a game changer and is a win for the customer. And there's no reason to not do it other than maybe some people who still have an ego that they want to MSA directly with the customer, because Amazon's just done a lot of that procurement work for folks that you might as well benefit from the machine.
Well, they have, and we're going through a process right now, taking a lot of for the exact reason you point out, right? Which is same thing. I'm in with a deal right now with let's call it a Fortune 500 company, and we have an incredible solution for them. It's saving them all kinds of money. It's enabled this $28 million deal with AWS, and we've been stuck in procurement and legal, hard place between a rock and whatever the saying is. And we just can't move forward, right? And we'll get there eventually, but so much time is being wasted and it just drives us nuts. What we're in the process of doing there, and Amazon's very, very savvy, right? Obviously, they're the reason they're one of the biggest companies in the whole world, but they've created this concept of like these standardized contracts. And it's essentially, to your point, hey, we've already negotiated for the last 3 years with this customer. And we basically have a scenario where we've come to terms and agreements that we think you as a new partner should accept like 85% of them of the contract. And if you do that, well, then you're shrinking the amount of back and forth because it's maybe 10, 15% that you have to go negotiate with the direct end user. And so to me, that's another way to make it easier to do business. And like that's been one of our credos in our businesses for as long as we can. It's one, the easiest customers that you can sell to is your existing customer. So you got to have great relationships and take care of them. But two, if you're talking to a customer, it's like, okay, how do I make it as easy as possible for them to transact with me? And as I said before, and as you mentioned, it's not easy anymore. There's so much red tape and there's so much bureaucracy that you have to go through from a vendor management standpoint. And again, understandable. Like companies are vulnerable. There's always nation states. There's always hackers. Everybody's always trying to find an easy way in. And so the ability to do business has gotten with other businesses gotten harder and harder.
So thanks to Amazon for taking the brunt of a lot of it to help companies like ours be successful too.
Yes, we love Amazon.
We do. I want to shift gears a little bit briefly to your take on sales and sales leadership, because to your credit, I haven't met a person yet who's worked for you didn't like it. So you must be doing something right. I mean, we opened up the conversation with you saying how your calendar is open to your salespeople, which I think is really cool. What has been a core piece to your approach to sales leadership that, one, makes you excited to keep doing it and not have to be as in the weeds every day, deal after deal, but instead allowing other folks to wear that? And just what are some unique things that you've brought to the table in that role to really help your sellers be extra successful?
Well, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. Always nice to hear. I think it's a bunch of different things, right? And it starts with being genuine. And, you know, you run into a lot of different folks who will say one thing to your face and then their actions or behind the scenes is totally different. And good sellers are smart, they're sharp, they're intuitive, they understand what's going on, they can read the room. And so I think you have to be very transparent, relentlessly transparent, and you have to be very genuine. I think you have to earn trust. It's like any other relationship where you have to be in a position where, hey, I'm going to give you advice, but I'm going to let you go, do it. And I got to trust that you're going to do it. And they have to trust that you're giving them good advice. That just comes from being in the trenches, to your point. You have to get some wins together. Once you do that, the rest can take care of itself. I've always thought, a bunch, like selling is one of the hardest jobs out there. And you really do have to have the right DNA and the right makeup. And so it starts with your hiring process and identifying competitive people, people that are not afraid to be uncomfortable. And then from there, you have to have this natural curiosity and this desire to improve. And the best reps, they don't settle, right? They're not lazy. They're self-motivated. They understand where their shortcomings are, and they need help with that. And that's where sales leadership becomes coaching, right? And trust me, I've made my fair share of mistakes. I don't think there's a perfect coach out there, perfect sales leader out there, but you have to be able to learn from it. You have to come back. And it's like any relationship. When you mess up, you got to say you're sorry. You got to say, hey, here's what I was trying to do, and have those conversations. I think there is a lot of being in the trenches, though, knowing that rep is going to trust you at the end of the day if you're fighting tooth and nail with them. And you're, the biggest deals, you lose 20 times. They die 20 times in a deal cycle, right? And so sometimes it's knowing when to push hard, and sometimes it's knowing when to, coach and say, hey, you're doing all the right things. There's just things you can't control, right? So I think that's an area that you just constantly have to be aware of.
From your sales career, what's a deal that sticks out to you as the most exciting, most fun, customer transformative deal that you've done?
We've done a lot of really, really neat deals over the years. Being in the cloud ecosystem with Relish Cloud from 2014 to 2018, and then CloudReach to 2019, we were ahead of our game, right? Like we were with friends. And so we were fortunate enough to work with a lot of companies that were doing hard things, and they were making these big transitions, and they were taking the opportunity to take risks when most other big companies weren't. They're a lot more conservative, and so we got really lucky early on. A lot of hard work. I think it's because we had some really amazing, talented people that earned what I always call the technical trust. And these are those architects and engineers that I talked about a little bit before. And we got them in front of the right people at the right place in the right time at Turner Broadcasting. And Turner had this incredible CTO who came in, and they had this plan called Project 2020. And I think they started around 2016. And they basically just said, hey, we're a cloud first company moving forward. If we want to keep up with all the trends and broadcast and engineering, and delivering content, delivering live content, we have to be more innovative. We have to be able to move quicker. So what we saw with that program 2020 and their movement into the cloud was really pivotal in terms of understanding how big companies work. And so we got in early, we did some assessments with them, and then we just helped build, compliance frameworks, governance frameworks, how a big company does a cloud review board, builds out cloud skill sets, and really just changes what had been a 40, 50-year IT process into something that was now cutting edge, new, innovative, and just changed everything. And we were just a small part of it, but it was really an incredible opportunity to meet people who were changing the game. They weren't afraid to take risks. They understood that the power of cloud. They were technologists that saw the future. And so being a part of that journey and just being hand in hand with them for about a 5-year period was just incredible.
I love it. And I might have a little idea what your answer is going to be to this final question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And I'm curious, what is the guiding principle that you've lived by to be successful in business?
And so I always took that and adopted it into my motto, which is today still one of our values at Relu Tech, which is work hard and hustle. And it's been interesting because the hustle mindset has gotten a bit of a bad reputation over the last, 3, 4, 5 years. And I understand all the reasons why. And I totally agree. There's been a lot of burnout in technology over the last couple of years. But for me, I always knew I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I was never going to be the most technical. I was never going to have all the answers. But I always had this mindset that was really just indoctrinated into me from a young age, seeing a dad who worked 3 jobs till the age of 40 to take care of 9 of us, which was just grind, just work hard and grind. And if you do that, the harder you work, I truly believe the luckier you get, right? And so it's not always going to have the best answer and the best outcome in the world, but I just think if you're constantly busy, activity breeds success. And so the more you work, the more you hustle, you can overcome any shortcoming. You can overcome when customers are unhappy, work harder for them. When customers are happy, work harder to keep them happier and buy more stuff for me in the future, right? And so for me, just a guiding principle has always been look for people who are not afraid to put in the effort. And I always say this too, like there's very few things in our life and our career that we can control, but your attitude and your effort are something that you can have a control over. And so the effort that you put in is going to be the effort you get out of it. And it's just been a creed of mine forever, which is work hard, hustle, good things will happen.
I have to say that saying got me through college. It was early to bed, early to rise makes a woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. And still to this day, I mean, it's the bane of my existence, but I am a morning person and I like to get up and just get life going and take action, even if I do not feel like it.
Well, yeah, you have to keep pushing, right? And my wife and my kids are a little older. They're 16, 14, 11. They all aren't always happy because in the morning I'm rock and rolling. Let's go. Singing songs to them and making fun of them and pulling out every dad joke. And they're all like asleep, trying not to listen to me and telling me to go away. So it's I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but I do better in the mornings and just getting going. And I feel like it's something where it's a competitive edge too, right? You get a workout in or you can do some kind of meditation. There's a lot of different things you can do in the morning before everybody else is up. And I think it sets the stage and the tone for the day.
Well, Michael, this has been so much fun. I appreciate your insights, not only on the AWS world, but sales leadership and enabling salespeople to be successful. I think that's something that really impressive and solid business leaders have and understand deeply, that salespeople are a big engine to the world that we live in today. So thanks for coming on, sharing your insights, and so excited to see more of what comes from Relu Tech.
Awesome. Thanks for having me and keep up the great work, Rebekah. I've always enjoyed watching you from afar. I know I hired you in our interview. I just remember you telling me about drumming and I was like, this girl, I'm not allowed to cuss probably on this, but I was like, this girl's a badass. She's going to crush it in this world. So
thank you.
Thanks for making me right. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Michael. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Talk soon. Thanks, Rebekah.